Kelly T Black Metal Reviews, and I'm joined today by the artist behind Teutoburg Forest, hailing from Chester in the UK. The creator behind this project is Donn Philosophia. Black metal, what else can I say? Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Teutoburg Forest, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a rundown first, because you know what I'm going to say. You need to go and listen to this artist's work. Formed in 2006, there is 6 releases under this man's discography, 3 full-length albums, an EP, a split, and a compilation album. This is pretty occultist, esoteric black metal, let me tell you. It's very raw, it's very aggressive and completely intense. So without further ado, I want to welcome you, Donn. Thank you for joining me tonight.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an absolute pleasure to be talking to you and talking about the project.
Absolutely, and it's nice to talk to you properly, because we have had a few conversations through messages, so it's very nice to talk to you in real time. But before we jump in, I just want to ask how you are, how your family are, because obviously we know that the UK has been smashed pretty hard with a fairly substantial lockdown and isolation at the moment. How are you guys coping over there?
Yeah, it's a bit annoying because I live in England, my family lives in Wales, and there's completely different laws for Wales and England. So it's a problem trying to navigate being able to see each other, and basically we haven't. So since March, I've not really seen any family or friends, and yeah, it's been an imposed sense of monastic isolation, really. And
That's
so
huge.
just trying to see the best of the situation. And right now, something exterior is happening to you, but don't let it break you. This is the time to learn to be strong within yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, because I do have some friends from the UK, some good friends, and they're in the same boat. They're trying to look at the positives. And I guess coming into summer, maybe you'll get a little bit of a relief. We can only hope that for you guys. But we're thinking of you, and I guess if you can say there's a positive out of this, it's that people are all in the same boat all over the world, and we're all kind of standing together. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, as I said, it's everybody's affected. So that's the best way to deal with it, is not as a personal attack to you, but to realize, right, we're all going through this together.
Yeah.
So, sorry, to answer the question properly, all my family's fine, and everybody that I know is fine. So thank you very much for the concern and question.
My pleasure. I was just interested to know, because I know it's hard times. But let's dive in and talk about your music, because I am a big fan of your work, and I'm really excited to just get a little bit more familiar with the thought behind your creations and everything that you've done so far. So as I said, formed in 2006 as a solo project. I was so interested to know when you told me that you were a bass player to begin with, and while you were writing the first couple of albums, you actually taught yourself guitars and drums, which just blew me away, because when I listened to your first 2 albums that came out in releases that came out in 2008, they're pretty raw, they're very underground black metal, very, very good, don't get me wrong. And just hearing the growth of your music from then to now is just fantastic. But most people that start a solo project are already an all-rounded musician. What made you decide to want to create a solo project? And my interest lies more so in how long did it take you to learn the drums and guitars, and what effort did you have to put in to achieve a recording quality?
Well, the reason why I learned all the instruments was basically I couldn't find any musicians. I couldn't find any bands to join. And I saw myself as a vocalist first. Even though I was playing bass, I saw myself primarily as a vocalist. And in the spirit of black metal, it's, oh, okay, then I'll just do it all myself. And so in relation to how long did it take to learn the instruments, each of the albums is me learning it. And so it wasn't like, oh, I'll spend a few months learning these instruments. It's just, that is a little time capsule of my progression of understanding and learning the instruments. So yeah, I just did it. Just, right, this is what I can do right now. This is the representation of my ability right now. And so it's really interesting looking back at all these layers of my progression and going, wow, I remember the passion. It's so long ago that it seems like a different person.
Mm.
And when you take yourself away from the emotions of, all right, I need it to be perfect and that I did that wrong, you can look at it objectively rather than subjectively and go, wow, that's really interesting that that person at that time, just even without any fear of, oh, it has to be absolutely immaculate.
Mm.
It's no, I just want to do it, and this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'm so glad I asked that question, because I really do think you can hear each stage of you getting more and more into knowing what you're doing. And as I said, that first release still blew my mind, because you were still, to know now that you were still learning at that point, is pretty incredible. So yeah, it's interesting though. I mean, you go back to, say, the 90s, there was solo projects around for sure. I mean, you know, you had Abyssic Hate and Xantha, all sorts of solo projects. But now the scene is just completely saturated with solo projects, particularly in black metal. And I think this year, last year, played a lot into that, because people were isolated and needing to still be creative. From a consumer point of view and a fan point of view, you know, when I find an album on Bandcamp, and logistically, if they're from Australia, the first thing I think is, oh, I can't wait to see these guys live. Like, this is another band I can see live. And then I realize they're a solo project. And my first thought is, oh, it's probably not going to happen because they're a solo project. So, and I know that some solo projects do have the view to get out there and, you know, get onto the stage. You've been around for quite a while. You're not a stranger in the scene. Have you ever taken this project to the stage? And now that you've kind of, because your music direction certainly has and is changing, do you plan to do that in the future?
Yes, Teutoburg Forest has played live, and in various lineups. I've done guitar and vocals, drums and vocals, and not bass and vocals though, even though that bass is my first love in all the instruments. I don't know, there's something really earthy. You feel the vibration a bit more with the bass.
Mm.
And yeah, but luckily, because I always wanted to be a vocalist, and music came second. And so I always wanted to be the front man. Always wanted to be just being able to focus purely on the expression through the voice. And all these variations of playing with guitar and playing with drums, I always felt like I was held back slightly from absolutely presenting it.
Mm.
But last year, Teutoburg Forest was offered to do its first festival, and we're getting musicians together and all excited. But then the situation happened, unfortunately, and so obviously that's been put on hold. But yes, right now there is an intention for Teutoburg Forest to go live, but we just have to see.
Yeah, just have to wait until things settle down. That's good news for fans of yours that I'm pretty sure would be very happy about that, because you just can't beat this sort of music live. There's just such an intensity to it. So lucky to them who get to see you when that happens, that's for sure. Let's talk about your 2019 release, Voltigeur, which is an absolutely just phenomenal EP for me. I only just sent this to my friend this afternoon, Dale. He asked who I was interviewing and I gave him all the details, and he not long replied just going, "This is so fucking good." So for people watching this that haven't listened to Voltigeur EP, please do it, because it is a great album. EP. It's 3 tracks, but what I love about it is that it's 3 solid tracks, and the duration is very generous. So you feel like you're getting more than just, you know, a 3-track EP. And I absolutely love the diversity that you threw into this. For me, each track just took on its different unique path, but you still tied it together with just the ambience of your massive vocal and the overall kind of mysterious atmosphere that your music has, that's for sure. I know that you're quite open about your spirituality and your occultism and that way of life. And you did put out a very, very interesting and ritualistic promo to this. But in your own words, how would you explain what this EP is about?
Piercing through the maelstrom of dream, and a call perceived between sound and silence. It is here at the crossroads of perception that I open the aperture of awareness, consciously engaging with the unconscious, and willingly I dive into the unknown darkness.
Well, Teutoburg Forest basically represents my progression as a person, my understanding of life and existence. And so this EP is a snapshot of all the different stages of the albums that I've done. The first three albums in 2008, Seeing God's Creation and Despising It was my favorite song off that phase of my progression. Then Malkuth Transforms into Lilith was my favorite song off Horns Curve into Broken Circles. And then As the Ego Dissolves Part 2 was the best that I could do at that moment in time, the pinnacle of my writing ability. And so I wanted to give all three little snapshots into one to give a taster for what was to come, to set the groundwork, because I was planning on creating the new album, Enantia Dromia, but I wanted there to be a summation of the past, and then, okay, now this is the next stage.
Yeah, and it's funny because when I was listening to your latest EP, which came out in late 2019, wasn't it? I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So, and then I jumped back into your discography and just noticed the change and the direction you were going in. And this EP made me really excited about what's to come for you. And then I've been lucky enough, thanks to you, because you did share your soon-to-be released album, Enantia Dromia, I think it's pronounced. I'm so sorry.
Enantia Dromia.
That's the one?
Sorry.
Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. So thank you firstly for sharing that with me, but just wow. I mean, I'm still processing this. I've been listening to it flat out over the past, week, but I'm still processing this because just the sophistication of your musicianship within this, the songwriting's taking on just so much depth and maturity, I guess. And yeah, it's just a significant step in your music, and I've absolutely loved it so far. I've listened to it from front to back. I've already got some favourites. It's absolutely a delight to listen to, that's for sure. Now that this album's finished and ready to go, what's your overall feeling personally about this album? Would you change anything? Are you absolutely stoked with it? How do you feel about it?
It's the first time I'm absolutely 100% proud of my material.
Good.
One of the major steps of that was, as I said in the beginning, I was playing the instruments just so I could sing over them, just so I had some material to play with. But as the years have gone by, I've started to love each instrument for its own nuance, for its own special place. Now I fully embrace every part of it all. And I think that's a great indication of my change in mentality, that you embrace life, you embrace every single part of what you're doing. And one of the best pieces of advice I was ever given was when the guy told me my first bass, and he goes, you get out of it what you put into it.
Yeah.
And I've learned that through experience. You get out what you put in.
Yeah.
And so because I put I gave each part respect and love, it's just become something beyond even my own expectation.
Honestly, this album for me, I can't wait to talk to people about this in depth. I know that people are going to absolutely love this. You always just catch me out with your riffs and the guitar patterns. They're so emotively melodic, but they're often got these quirky elements to it as well. And I heard this a lot in this album. It's very, very unique. You're not just doing sort of cookie cutting riffs or trem picks and things like that, which I really, really enjoyed hearing. That was a massive star for me throughout this album. And so obviously the guitar lessons are definitely paying off. That's for sure.
Oh, that's another thing. I don't know any. I've not learnt any musical theory at all. One of the huge parts of it, because of the arrogance of youth, and I thought, no, I'm not even going to learn. I'm just going to absolutely express myself completely and just play the instrument. So maybe that's one of the reasons why it's maybe sounds interesting and different, is the fact that it's not even encoded into me to think, oh, that should sound like that. That note goes with that note. All I do is just play, and whatever I feel sounds right, that's what goes in.
There you go. That's really well. You can definitely hear that. I mean, it works. It sounds like it's deliberate, and you've deliberately placed these little quirky elements where you've placed them, and it's brilliant. I've absolutely loved it so far. One of the tracks that I've just been really taken with was Into Amentia. Now, for me, this was just brilliant. I feel like you've grabbed so many different influences from all sorts of metal, like the corners of all sorts of metal genres, and just pulled it into this track, and it just works so, so well. It's very progressive, the way you write your music, and I think that track in particular really showcases it. So that one stood out like dog's balls to me. I absolutely loved it. But the lyrical content to this one, for me...
Dog's balls! Sorry, that's amazing.
I had to break out some Aussie slang with you.
Brilliant. Oh, it's the dog's bollocks. Yeah.
Oh shit, where was I now? You put me off.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. So lyrically, this one interests me a lot because my interpretation, given that title, and I was trying to decipher your lyrics through your massive guttural and your screams, because they're so intense. Absolutely love your vocals. But for me, this is around, the decline of the mental state, deep psyche type themes. And as I said, your occultism practices, you put them out there. My interpretation of the lyrics of this track through your massive gutturals and your big screams, because you've got such an intense vocal. I absolutely love your vocals throughout this music. It just couldn't be any more suited. But to me, it's more about the decline of the psyche and the decline of mental state. Given that you are so tightly connected to the occultism themes and also just within your spirituality outside of music, is this track still have some underlying theme in relation to that, or does this sit out on its own and is about something entirely different? Because I was just very interested in that one because it sort of stood out to me lyrically, that's for sure.
All right, okay. Yeah. Well, the whole album, Enantia Dromea, is the process of consciously being able to turn things into its opposites to become the inner alchemist. And so in doing that, you become your own light, you become your own torchbearer, you become as Lucifer Hecate, and you no longer search for light, you become the light. You remove the title of seeker, you become the very light that you sought. And so it's the whole process, starting with Cain Ben Samael and finishing with For I Am, the Way. So it's a descent it's like Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey. You go in, you leave security of your home, go into the darkness, test yourself, realize that you are fallible, you fall, you learn to rise up again and overcome the challenge. And then with learning those lessons, you come back to the paradise. And this is the process of going out and coming in.
Yeah, right.
Embracing the flux of existence. Now, Into a Mentor is the second song after Cain Ben Samael. Cain Ben Samael is the idea of you willfully engage with the darkness. You consciously embrace the shadow. And so Into a Mentor translates roughly to hell. So into hell, I willfully go into hell. So that's interesting that you said it was a decline. So a descent, maybe. Yeah, that's very astute of you. Yeah, and I'm glad that's because even though that the lyrics are esoteric, and that's simply for my own enjoyment to play with these concepts and express myself in that way through that medium. But even if you don't understand every single reference, you get the tone, and that's fantastic.
Yeah,
that's brilliant. That's as it speaks without words.
it does. Yeah, definitely. I mean, I get the impression that your beliefs impact your music greatly. I feel like this is not a facade for you. This is translating what you're about, what your beliefs are about, your spirituality, and I just think it's really amazing. And it just does put so much authentic darkness into your music as well, which I really enjoy hearing. It's really refreshing, that's for sure. The other track I want to talk to you about is 358 Scars, another one that I absolutely loved. This one to me just had the hint of old school second wave black metal, but you've somehow managed to throw in these unique riffs, these spontaneous and quirky solos in there, and the vocals are just, again, so atmospheric and mean. Like, you're a force, man. I love your vocals. It's such a random title though, 358 Scars. So I've got to ask, where did that title come from? And again, I'd love to know what this track is about, because I was a little bit confused on this one as well.
All right. Well, that's the fourth track, and the track preceding it is 333 Arms of Kronzon, 333 Arms of Kronzon, which is the abyss within yourself. You move through the abyss to remove the waste product of yourself, the ego, the false perception of yourself. And once you come out of it, you are covered in the 358 scars. 358 in certain traditions, you take a name and then you whittle it down to what does it equal as a number, and then any other names that equate to that number actually link to each other. Now, Messiah, if you whittle it down to 358, whittle it down comes to 358. But also in Hebrew, Nechesech, that's the name of the serpent in the Garden of Eden, comes down to 358.
Right.
So by going through the abyss and going through the process, you become the Messiah.
Wow.
You become the dark Messiah. So that's why it's 358 scars.
Gosh, we could have a whole conversation around this for hours. This is so interesting to me. So I'm definitely going to come back to this with you offline, that's for sure. But that's really interesting. You obviously know a lot about, you've obviously done a lot of research and you're living and breathing it. There's no doubt that your main soundscape is black metal, without a doubt. But this latest album that's not yet released, you've definitely shone heavy some death metal in there, which I absolutely love. There's some indie rock going on. I just, that was so cool to hear, and you've placed it so well, and also some heavy punk moments. It's probably a bit of a cliche question, but it's interesting for me because I'd like to know how long you you know, metal's been in your veins. And who were your biggest influences growing up, and have they changed when you started creating your own music? Did you start to grab influences from unexpected sources, or stuck with those old faithfuls?
Well, it started off with my dad playing us Metallica, AC/DC, Van Halen, Led Zeppelin. But then growing up, probably the biggest influence for what would then become Teutoburg Forest was Behemoth.
Oh, yeah.
That I saw these brutal people making unbelievably amazing music, and they looked amazing. But then with the lyrics, you open the book, and there's lyrics, but then on the side there's an explanation. So it wasn't just the music, it wasn't just the image, there was actually content in it. And I've always been interested in academia and history and philosophy and all these. And so these really intimidating, interesting guys who you want to aspire to be because they seem strong. They're not just strong physically, but they're strong mentally.
Mm.
And that was, they encouraged me to be able to have the confidence to actually engage with the theoretical and not just the music. It was acceptable and encouraged actually to express yourself and express your interests, even if it's because normally you think of history as dull and boring, but no, these people made these myths and these legends and these historical facts interesting and put it into their expression. Yeah, you can't describe to you how important Behemoth is to me in inspiring me, because then that led me to Watain and Offmod, and yeah.
It's interesting. I mean, I know a lot of people say, oh God, everyone asks that question, but I do find it interesting because some people's influences are so left field compared to what they're doing, but that makes perfect sense that Behemoth would be an influence for your music and everything that you're doing, it's really cool. You've been around for a long time, and I just have to ask, what are some of the better moments of your career throughout the time that you've been creating music?
Going on tour with Tucker and Bifrost.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
No, it was under, I changed the name of Teutoburg Forest to Donn Philosophia.
That's right.
Because I was an arrogant little thing. And I just had it in my mind, that's a good idea, and I changed the title. But in all essence, it still was just me. It was exactly the same, excuse me.
You're right.
Process of me writing all the music, me doing all the lyrics, me doing all the artwork, but I just changed it. But yes, that was the high point. And Enantia de Romea, I genuinely believe that this album is as exciting as that experience.
This is a big album. I mean, I'm really excited for people to hear this. I feel really special that I've been able to listen to this, and I'm going to have this on high rotation because it's one of those albums that's extremely deep and intense, but it's going to keep opening up with every listen. It's going to evolve, and for me, those are the best albums to listen to because you want to keep listening to them to hear every element more and more and discover more and more with every listen. So congratulations. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Tell us when we can expect to be able to buy this album. What's your plans? Are you looking for a label? Have you got a date in mind? When can we be played?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for phenomenal compliment. You're just showering me. Yeah.
You spit out the door, I'll scratch your ear from here.
Yes. Still in the process of looking for a label to release it. And so it's all in relation to that, really. So
Yeah, okay.
yeah, we will see. So I can't give you a date. Sorry.
That's okay, because I have a copy, so I'm good. But yeah, just keep me posted. I'll certainly be telling people about it, that's for sure. And I'd love to review it properly for you in due course, there is no doubt. This was such a pleasure to talk to you, Donn. You're a very, very interesting human being. You're an incredible artist. More people need to know the music that you create. And hopefully people watch this interview and go and check out your discography and get really excited about this album that's soon to come, hopefully this year, that's for sure. So if there's anything else you would like to say, please go ahead.
I'd just like to thank you for this opportunity and for your support. And I look forward to hopefully speaking to you in the future.
Absolutely. And you're very welcome. It's been a pleasure. Thanks, Donn.
Thank you.